David R., you are up next, sir. Hello.
How you doing, Bart? Hope you're having a great one so far.
Yeah, pretty good, man. How's it going?
It's fantastic, fantastic. What's going on?
So, where's this one played out of?
This was at the Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. It was eight-handed, not nine-handed, which I said in the original email.
Okay.
2-5, no limit. So you want me to just jump right in?
Sure. What's the buy-in cap in this game?
It's $1,000 cap, but I have about 1550. It's 1450 effective though with the main villain.
Okay.
And there's another player in the hand that's kind of irrelevant. He had about 700 or 800. Most of the players actually had less than 1,000, five to seven, $800 on the table for the most part.
Okay.
Sorry, so hero opens from middle position to $20 with Queen of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds.
Okay.
Cut off behind, who is again not the main villain, flats the raise, and the big blind main villain also flats the raise. So it's three to a flop.
So the pot's about $60.
About $60. Yep.
Okay.
Flop Ace of Hearts, Jack of Clubs, Four of Diamonds.
Okay. So not the best flop for you.
No, definitely not the best flop. Big blind checks. The villain behind me seemed kind of, from what I've seen, I've been there for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. He was kind of an older guy, a little bit kind of an ABC, hands face up kind of player. So I figure if I check to him, if he bets, he's probably got the ace. It's just one of those kind of ABC guys that are pretty predictable. So I decided to check behind rather than bet small. And the cutoff does check behind.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I mean, it's not a two flush board here. It definitely multi-way, you're going to have some checks on a board like this, although I would probably still would do a whole lot of betting, even sometimes with weak aces, just because of the Broadway nature of the board, where I might start checking, like if I had opened, say, like ace four, ace six suited, something like that, if the board was like ace eight, deuce, rainbow. So I still probably would do a lot of betting here with ace x, even not on a two flush board, but sometimes checking. So it gets checked through.
It gets checked there. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So pot is still $60. The turn is the seven of spades, completing the rainbow.
Okay.
And the big blind now bets in for $35.
Okay.
And for the same reasons as to, what I felt about the cutoff on the flop, I decided to call in the middle here, thinking that he's unlikely to have an ace.
Right. You're
So I
almost
call
like
the 35.
you're almost treating it like a heads up spot, right? Almost, because you think the cutoff's going to be out of there. Okay.
Yeah, I think the cutoff's out of there pretty sure. And sure enough, he does pretty immediately fold, doesn't even think about it.
So 130 here to the river.
Yep, 130 the river, and the queen of club lands on the river,
So
giving
you
me a set of
river a
queens.
set. So you river second set.
Correct.
Of course, it puts out a straight here to Broadway with King 10. No flush draws out there. Okay.
No flush draws, definitely a straight to Broadway with king 10. And the big blind continues betting, and he bets $80 into 130. So I consider my action. I know I'm going to raise here. I'm just kind of thinking about what size. I decided after about 30 to 45 seconds to raise to 350, kind of going extra big, kind of look like I'm full of it a little bit. Um, so I don't know what you think about the sizing.
I think it's fine. I mean, obviously you're trying to, it's just interesting. There's no obviously there's no backdoor flush draw here. I'm not really overly concerned about King 10. It's not the type of hand that I really see lead turn a ton here into two people after it gets checked through, especially when the preflop rate. I mean, it's just so unlikely that that bet is going to get through both players. I mean, it could happen. No backdoor flush draw out here. So I would say that you've got the best hand here. Just absolutely, a ton. Yeah, I have no problem with your raise size. Now, you started 1450 effective with this guy. So it looks like even after the 350, he would have 1,000. He probably has like 1,300-ish total, right? Like in his stack, even before he calls the 350.
I have it at 1350 total going to the river as far as what he has.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think
about 1270 after the 80, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you absolutely have to raise, and it's just one of these things where it would be so infrequent that I would expect a three bet jam. I wouldn't even have to. I wouldn't even think about it. Sometimes people think, well, you always need to know what you're gonna do, like if you get raised, and I don't necessarily buy into that because there are just times when it's just so infrequent. I don't think that you should necessarily like waste the mental energy. Now, if it were to come, then you can think about it. You know what I mean? So I don't have an issue with your player. So you go to 350.
I go to 350,
Yep.
and he goes deep in the tank. And I'm starting to wonder, I'm thinking he's going to end up possibly calling. I'm begging for a call. And he tanks forever. I mean, it's like a minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes. Um, and then he jams for 1350. And I'm just like, wait a second, like this was Hollywood. Like, what is going on? This is like super suspicious. And I'm just completely floored. I wasn't expecting him to jam here.
So he jams for 1350 total. Let's do some math. So 210, 560, 560, what, 810? It's like 1800, 1000 for you to call, something like that.
Yep. Yep. Another 1,000 to call. Exactly.
1800, 1000 to call. Well, you know what MDF is, right?
Yeah. Minimum defense frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's got to be
MDF,
high up in the range. Yeah.
well, MDF would say that like this is going to be probably one of the best hands that you would ever have given this situation. I mean, unless you are slow playing ace ace, but that's, this guy's not going to have ace ace, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know if you ever have king 10 here calling turn with a guy behind you. It's like one of these things where you've kind of set it up where you don't think the cutoff really has anything behind you. So maybe once in a while you
Yeah,
could
I don't
have
think
like
I
a
ever
king
have
10.
king 10. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think I would.
it's probably infrequent. I mean, it would be a very, very gross exploit here, I think, to fold just absolutely going back to the fact that, raises on the river are so infrequently bluffs, check raises on the river, and in this case, probably like the strongest move in the world, which is a bet, 3-bet here on the river. You're getting almost 2-1. One of the things I've learned from these call-ins, and maybe it's just because we've gotten this sample of, kind of crazy hands that, not crazy hands, but interesting hands that we pick, is there certainly has been over the last year, I would say somewhat of a frequent setup like this where somebody at this level figures, well, you can't have the nuts, I can have it, so, I'm going to bluff here. So I would have a really, really hard time folding, especially given sort of the live read that you just gave here too, which was like he thought about it for a while and then he kind of jammed.
Yeah.
And again, I just wonder how often someone's going to go king 10. Now, the thing is that is he ever jamming with worse? Probably not. So, the issue then is like he's got to be turning something into a bluff here, that he would bet here out on the turn. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, two pairs definitely never jamming here. That would be suicidal. I don't know if 4s or 7s are jamming here. I doubt it. I mean, he'd have to put me on like exactly ace queen,
I don't think so.
which
Yeah.
probably doesn't make any sense either. This guy is so he's a young Asian player, about 25 years old, wearing the hoodie, looks the part. But in South Florida, I don't know if you know our reputation, the 2-5 games are kind of soft down here. To see a 3-bet jam on the river with a bluff is just, I never see it. And I play hundreds of hours, thousands of hours. At 5-10, I'll see it. But something in this situation, I never see it. So I'm really thinking about it. And I'm just like what you said. I can't imagine folding here with the best hand that I could ever have at this point. It just seems like a terrible play. So after tanking for a minute or two, I asked the dealer, can I turn my hand over? Make sure it's not dead. Dealer says fine. I turn it over.
By the way,
Yeah.
before you go on here, I just want to highlight something that's somewhat interesting here too. So obviously, like the key blockers to have like in your hand for either player, right, would be a card that contains the nuts in it, right, like a king or a 10. Let's say that let's say you had king jack here. Okay, let's say instead of having queen queen, you had king jack here, and you decided that you wanted to turn your hand into a bluff on the river because you were fairly convinced this guy had an ace. Maybe you know him like sort of the way that he plays. You didn't think that king jack was good enough to call down, so you decided to raise it. Okay, maybe representing queen queen or representing king 10. So you turn your hand into a bluff. And now this guy bet 3 bets all in. So it is possible in poker to actually have a hand that you are bluffing with that then becomes a bluff catcher. Because you could make a case here that if this is just always a bluff or king 10, that you would rather have king jack in your hand that you were bluffing with on the river to call the bet 3-bet. So you can actually have a hand that you're bluffing with that becomes a bluff catcher. I remember we had this hand from, I don't know, maybe like a month ago where a guy was trying to do that. Like he was trying to represent the ace. Like a guy from up front was bluffing. The hero was trying or the hero was trying to represent an ace, and then the guy in position raised him as a bluff, and then the hero jammed, and the hero was bluffing, and then the guy called him with his bluff raise. So the bluff raise became a bluff catcher. That's actually logical in this spot. But anyways, I digress. So what ended up happening?
Sure.
What'd you do? Yeah.
Yeah, so after tanking, I came to the same realization. I even said it out loud. I said, you know what? If I'm folding queen here, I feel like I'm folding everything, and that this guy just has zero bluffs. And I looked at him again, and I don't know if I said it out loud, the first part. I literally said in my head or out loud, I said, "You're Asian," and then I said verbally, for sure, I call. And he turned over ace 10. He turned it into a bluff on the river. And
wow.
I literally just decided, you know what, he's Asian. I got to go.
Wow, that's that's wild. But again, it's not really a frequent thing. Also, too, someone rightly pointed out, T. Krupta, that if you had king jack, you actually might end up losing to king queen if you did what I talked about, some of the other guy with the king queen turning into a bluff. But I don't know if king queen bets the river or ace 10. But, you know, exactly. That would be very problematic, right? If you raise called with king jack and then you lost to ace 10. So sometimes you got to look at that too, right?